29 course wrap-up, Becoming a More Knowledgeable Real Estate Professional Through Appraisal. Nearly a year after Michael and Sarah purchased their home, everyone gathered once again at Michael's brokerage office. Ashley had completed her first several transactions. Daniel had successfully closed his first listing. Lisa's investment property was fully occupied, and Ryan and Jessica had already built equity in the home they once worried they might lose because of a low appraisal. As everyone talked about the past year, Michael walked over to the whiteboard where he had first explained the appraisal process months earlier. He smiled and asked one simple question. When this course began, what did you think an appraisal was? Ashley laughed. I honestly thought it was just someone measuring a house and deciding what it was worth. Daniel nodded. I thought if an appraisal came in low, someone had made a mistake. Ryan added, I believe the contract price determined the value. Sarah smiled, and I thought every number connected to a property, market value, assessed value, insurance value, meant exactly the same thing. Michael nodded. Those are probably the most common misconceptions people have. But now, Ashley answered first, now I understand an appraisal is much more than a number. It's a professional analysis supported by market evidence. Daniel added, I learned that appraisers don't create the market. They interpret it. Lisa smiled. And investors, homeowners, lenders, buyers, and sellers may all look at the same property differently because they're asking different questions. Michael looked around the room. Exactly. Every transaction you've studied throughout this course demonstrated that successful real estate professionals don't rely on assumptions. They rely on facts. Together, the group reviewed everything they had learned. They discussed how appraisers are regulated and why appraiser independence protects both consumers and lenders. They reviewed the meaning of market value and why contract price does not always equal market value. They talked about utility, scarcity, demand, and transferability, and how those economic principles influence buyer behavior every day. They revisited the different types of value, including market value, assessed value, investment value, insurable value, liquidation value, and salvage value. Ashley pointed to the whiteboard. I'll never forget highest and best use. It changed how I look at land and investment property. Daniel added, and now I understand why two homes with the same square footage can have completely different values. Michael smiled, because real estate has never been about square footage alone. It's about location, it's about condition, it's about market demand. It's about understanding why people make the decisions they do. The conversation shifted toward the three traditional approaches to value. Lisa laughed. I used to think every appraisal worked exactly the same. Now I know the sales comparison approach usually drives residential appraisals. The cost approach becomes especially valuable for new construction and unique properties. And the income capitalization approach is essential when valuing investment real estate. Michael nodded, and perhaps the most important lesson, the appraiser doesn't simply average the numbers. The reconciliation process requires professional judgment. Everyone agreed. As the discussion continued, they reflected on the appraisal challenges they had encountered throughout the year. They remembered the transaction that almost fell apart because of a low appraisal. They remembered gathering factual information instead of arguing with the appraiser. They remembered working with the lender through the reconsideration of value process. Most importantly, they remembered that professional communication, not emotion, ultimately brought the transaction to a successful closing. Michael looked at the group. What did all of those situations have in common? There was a moment of silence before Sarah answered. They weren't really appraisal problems. They were communication problems. Michael smiled. Exactly. The more you understand the appraisal process, the better you communicate. The better you communicate, the better you serve your clients. And the better you serve your clients, the more you protect the public. He paused for a moment before offering one final piece of advice. Never forget that buyers, sellers, lenders, escrow officers, inspectors, title companies, appraisers, and real estate professionals all have different responsibilities. When everyone respects those roles and works together professionally, transactions succeed. When people stop communicating or make assumptions, problems begin. Ashley looked around the room and smiled. I don't think I'll ever look at an appraisal the same way again. Daniel agreed. I used to think appraisals were obstacles. Now I see they're tools. They help everyone make informed decisions. Michael closed his notebook. That's the purpose of this course. You were never expected to become licensed appraisers. You were expected to become better real estate professionals. He reminded the class that every comparative market analysis they prepare, every listing presentation they conduct, every pricing discussion they have with a seller, every appraisal they review, and every buyer they guide through financing will be strengthened by the knowledge they gain during this course. Understanding appraisal principles helps establish realistic expectations. It improves negotiations. It strengthens communication with lenders and appraisers. It reduces surprises during escrow. Most importantly, it helps Arizona real estate professionals fulfill their primary responsibility, protecting the public while providing competent, ethical, and professional representation. As everyone gathered their materials and prepared to leave, Michael thanked the class one final time. The market will continue to change. Interest rates will rise and fall. Neighborhoods will grow. Technology will evolve. Appraisal methods will continue to improve. But one thing should never change: your commitment to professionalism, education, integrity, and serving your clients with knowledge and confidence. With that, the class came to an end. The lessons learned throughout this course would continue long after the continuing education credit had been earned, helping each student make better decisions, provide better service, and build a stronger, more successful real estate career throughout Arizona. Broker tip: the best real estate professionals never stop learning. Every transaction is an opportunity to strengthen your market knowledge, improve your communication skills, and better serve your clients. Understanding appraisal principles doesn't make you an appraiser. It makes you a more informed, trusted, and effective Arizona real estate professional. Online discussion. 1. Looking back over this course, which appraisal concept do you believe will have the greatest impact on your real estate career, and why? Answer. Answers will vary, but many licensees find that understanding market value, properly preparing comparative market analyses, and communicating effectively during the appraisal process significantly improve client confidence and reduce transaction problems. Applying these concepts helps agents provide more professional representation throughout every stage of the real estate transaction. How does appraisal knowledge help protect the public? Appraisal knowledge allows real estate professionals to establish realistic expectations, explain market conditions accurately, avoid misleading statements about value, communicate effectively with lenders and appraisers, and guide buyers and sellers through informed decision-making. These practices promote ethical conduct and strengthen consumer protection. What is the most important lesson you are taking away from this course? While responses will vary, the central lesson is that appraisal is not about producing a number. It is about understanding the market. Successful real estate professionals use appraisal knowledge to educate clients, solve problems, communicate professionally, and help transactions move successfully from listing to closing while protecting the public.